Call this meeting of the Davenport Community School District Board of Directors to order. We appreciate your attendance at this board meeting. By attending meetings, you can learn about the accomplishments, needs, and concerns we face. The board meets regularly on the first Monday for committee of the whole meetings and the second and fourth Mondays of each month for regular meetings. Open forum for the public is available only at regular meetings. All meetings are open to the public except closed and exempt sessions, which are permitted by certain sections of Iowa Code. All board decisions, however, are made in public open session. The board is not a forum. It is a deliberative body. Accordingly, it receives communications, both oral and written, as a medium of information. It does not debate the contents of such communications, but considers them in making decisions and in the establishment of policies. During each regular board meeting, there is an opportunity to address the board by completing an open forum request and giving it to the board secretary prior to the meeting. Each person may have up to 2 minutes of time to speak. This is a time of listening by the school board, so the board does not make any comments during open forum. The issue will usually be referred to the administration for further study and follow-up if necessary. When the board president recognizes you, direct your comments to the entire board and limit your remarks to 2 minutes unless extra time has been approved by the board president prior to the meeting. The school board president will recognize one speaker at a time and will rule out of order other speakers who are not recognized. Only those speakers that are recognized by the chair will be allowed to speak. Comments by others are out of order. The school board president shall promptly rule out of order any discussion by any person, including school board members, that would violate the provisions of state or federal law, our open forum policy, or the statutory rights of privacy of an individual. To ensure that the board can conduct the important business of the district, the following guidelines apply to all members of the public who attend board meetings. The board asks that all members of the public treat open forum speakers, district employees, and the board with respect. Individuals are not permitted to engage in conduct that interferes with the ability of other individuals to watch the board meetings, interferes with the ability of other members of the public to offer comment to the board, or interferes with the ability of the board to conduct its business. Demonstrations during public comments, such as clapping or cheering in response to either public comments or statements made by board members, is discouraged. Those wishing to display placards, signs, and/or banners may not block any attendee's view of the proceedings. Director Potts, would you please read the board priorities?
Yes, I will.
Do you want to read them off right here? Here, right there.
Yeah, I can see it. I turn the microphone.
I want to make sure that that board members do speak into the microphones here.
It's right here.
Okay, thank you.
The Davenport School Board establishes the following priorities to ensure the academic success of all students. Provide leadership and direction to improve the overall learning environment in our classrooms, schools, and district, including the health, safety, security, and happiness of students and staff. Direct and support actions, programs, and activities which reduce the impact of poverty on our students, their families, and our community.
Thank you. Director Beck, would you please read our mission and vision statements?
The mission statement: to enhance each student's abilities by providing a quality education enriched by our diverse community. And our vision statement: education that challenges conventional thinking, prepares all students to compete in a global society, and inspires our students, parents, staff, and community to answer the question, what if?
Thank you very much. Superintendent Tate, would you please introduce our new student board members?
Thank you, Mr. President and Board. We do have new student board members here tonight, and we have 2 from West and 2 from Central and 1 from North and 1 from Mid-City. What I'm going to do is ask them, beginning with Carson, to introduce themselves, talk a little bit about what they're doing in school, and then when both of you from the school introduce yourself, talk about what's happening in your school. Thank you.
Hi. My name is Carson Cayley. I'm a senior at West High School. I'm involved with band. I've been the drumline captain for 3 years at West. I'm in National Honor Society. I'm the president at West of National Honor Society, and I'm a junior Rotarian.
My name is Alyssa Rodriguez, and I'm a senior this year, and I am project manager of the Combustible Lemons, which is the FGC robotics team at West High School. So at West High School currently, it is homecoming week. The theme is Under the Stars, and to celebrate this, we've got a spirit week, which includes themes such as mix match, tourist, workout, tie-dye, and crazy red and white.
We have some fun activities for the students during homecoming week. There's an obstacle course after school on Tuesday and a football tournament on Wednesday. We have a parade and bonfire Thursday after school, which is when the homecoming queen is announced. And of course, the homecoming game versus North on Friday. At West, the drumline is hosting an event called Beat Stigma. We're teaming with North Drumline and Vera French to support mental health awareness. The point of the project is to express the fact that mental health is just as important as physical health. We're selling shirts, and all proceeds go to Vera French. And we have a performance in October at Vera French to support the cause.
Also, speaking of robotics, the first Tech Challenge teams, the Combustible Lemons and Mortal Kombats, have just started their season for this year. And then we've got a youth club called HOSA, which stands for Health Occupation Students of America, which will be having their first meeting on Thursday. And then the Inspired students have just submitted their grant for the MIT grant. They're working on the Kenya's water solution. So they're ready to hear back about that sometime in the next couple months.
Thank you.
I'm Natalie Beatty, and I'm a senior at Central. I participate in swimming, I cheer for football, basketball, and wrestling. I'm in track and softball in National Honor Society.
My name is Brady Kinker, and at Central, I'm a senior. I'm a 4-year varsity golfer and played baseball in the past. I'm also the leader of the environmental club and started the engineering club. Extracurriculars are just getting in full swing now, and the drum club set a record-setting 86 members.
And our homecoming is next week, and the theme is Blow Coming. And then we have, our court was just announced last Friday, and we'll vote them, or the homecoming queen will be announced next Thursday at our odd. We also have a parade that Thursday, and we have themes all week.
Hi, my name is Esther Wilzer. I'm a senior at North. I'm involved in a lot of music, so that includes drama club. I'm the vice president of drama club. I'm also a drum major in the marching band. I'm the volunteer chair for the Joy Club, the historian for National Honor Society, vice president of student council. So I'm kind of all over the place a lot of the time. As far as North goes, again, a lot of our activities are just getting in session. So our North football team has a 2-1 record for the first time in 20 years or so that's really awesome. Our homecoming is also next week, and our theme is Mardi Gras, so the title is A Night on Bourbon Street. So our court should be announced in the next couple of days, and on the 19th, we have our homecoming parade and our bonfire, and that's also where the coronation is. And then our game is actually on a Thursday this year, and that's versus Limar, and so we figured we'd have some type of activity on Friday. So we're actually having a field day behind the school with a bunch of like outdoor games and concessions and that kind of thing. And then our dance will be second.
My name is Nate Lumber. I'm a senior at Mid-State High School.
Nate, a little bit closer to the mic.
I have been at Mid-State for 3 years now. I'm just starting my sophomore year. Started off as basically a turtle shell, and they brought me out, and I am now sitting here in the 4th, which never thought would happen. There's only 300 kids max in my school, so we don't have the dances, the sports teams, all those, but we make up for it in our choir, which has, I think, 21 kids right now. So that's what as we have the I Youth Congress that goes up to the Capitol every other month, I believe, something like that. And they lobby there, and we have a student council, which is pretty small, but does the job. I'm one of the students that takes the 8th graders on tours when they come visit our school at the end of the year, which I really enjoy. I like to see the new students that are coming into school. It's pretty much a small school like ours.
Thank you one and all. We appreciate you being here and for your reports.
Thank you, Superintendent Tate, and thank you, all of you, new student board members. And I want to tell you that I'm really excited for you to be here. Our whole board is excited. And, you know, with the new school year starting, and this is important work that you come and do and talk to the community. And every person in this room is here really because of you, because of students. And so whether it's the superintendent, the board, community members, teachers, custodians, we have a lot of people here. And so it really is important. And I want to encourage you as the year goes on and the meetings get longer and more boring, to weigh all of that with all of your own activities. But we really, really appreciate you being here and giving your time to participate in this way. So thank you very much. Move on to board reports. Are there any? Director DeSalvo.
I attended the forum at North High School last week. We didn't have quite the turnout that we had at the prior 2 forums, but we had a good turnout. We had great community involvement, really good discussion. Dawn took a lot of good notes for us, so that was the last of the forums, but it was a good event. So thanks for everybody that showed up.
Thank you. Any other board reports? Director Hayes.
Couple weeks ago,
No, you aren't on yet. There you go.
couple weeks ago, that day that we had a terrible storm, I went to the Creative Arts Academy open house and ice cream soda show. Just walking around, looking at the beautiful view, and all the students, they were really excited. There's one room in there, I'm not sure what they're using it for, but a lot of them stated that they liked the opportunity to sit in that room and look at the rivers. So everyone that I saw that was there, that, you know, they had positive comments about the academy being downtown.
Thank you. Director Gosa.
I haven't got to be here in a while. Normally I'm the voice in the sky, but I just wanted you guys to know I'm participating by phone through the whole meeting, so I hear the open forums and everything like that. So I do hear what you're saying. I do get my emails and stuff like that. Unfortunately, my job requires me to be out of town Monday through Friday right now. Hopefully I'll have that all wrapped up before the first of the year. But I also wanted to thank directors DeSalvo, Hayes, and Johansson, because they usually will call me before a board meeting to ask if there's anything that I want brought up, or call me after a board meeting to go through stuff. And President Johansson's met with me on a few weekends for 4 to 5 hours at a pop to go over different things. So I do appreciate that from you guys, and I apologize for not being here in the flesh. I thought about getting a cardboard cutout of myself so you guys would see me all the time, but and then so today I actually got to be in town, so I went to my daughter's school and did Watchdog, which this is my 9th year doing that, so I'm getting kind of a little bit older now. And while I was there, I ran into Mr. Schneeden, so they do go out into the schools. We just happened that he was leaving as I was coming in. But one thing I did notice, and I wanted to give this guy a shout out, he's been the custodian at Fillmore for, I couldn't tell you how many years, as long as my kids went there, Joe Ward, and he retired last year, but he still comes up to Fillmore and volunteers 3 days a week to work the lunch. So I just want to say, with everything that's going on, I do support the custodians. I think you're an instrumental part of our programs. I mean, for that guy to do that, and I see he volunteers for fun nights, everything else, he DJs it for him and the kids and stuff, and just to have that interaction, and that he's willing to spend, 3 days of the week when you're retired and you want to go lay on a beach somewhere is an awesome thing. So I do appreciate that. I think that's all I had.
Thank you very much. Director Mayfield, we're just in the board reports section. I don't know, do you have any board reports?
I do not.
Okay. Are there any other board reports? Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to communications. Director DeSalvo, would you please read those for us?
I'd be happy to. September 11th, which is Tuesday at 5 p.m., there's a board workshop here in the executive boardroom at the Achievement Service Center at 1702 Main Street. September 12th, which is Wednesday at 4 p.m., Policy Committee will meet in the executive boardroom at the Achievement Service Center here at 1702 Main Street. September 18th, Tuesday at 5:30, the Local School Improvement Advisory Committee will meet in the Jim Hester boardroom at the Achievement Service Center, 1702 Main Street. September 24th, bless you. Monday at 6 p.m., there's a regular board meeting in the Jim Hester boardroom at the Achievement Service Center, 1702 Main Street. October 1st, Monday at 5:30, there's committee of the whole meeting here in the Jim Hester boardroom at the Achievement Service Center, 1702 Main Street. October 2nd, this is the most important of all of these. Tuesday from 5:30 to 7, we will have our annual legislative fall gathering event, formerly the Ice Cream Social, here in the Jim Hester boardroom at the Achievement Service Center, 1702 Main Street. October 3rd, Wednesday at 4 p.m., Policy Committee in the Executive Boardroom at the Achievement Service Center, 1702 Main Street. October 8th, Monday, 6 p.m., there's a regular meeting here in the Jim Hester Boardroom at the Achievement Service Center, 1702 Main Street.
Thank you. Next is open forum. Open forum is a time for members of the community to give input at a board meeting regarding school district issues or concerns. Individuals who want to speak should fill out an open forum request and give it to the board secretary prior to open forum. The board will not act on any issue presented during open forum if it was not published as an agenda item. The Iowa Open Meetings Law prohibits action on any issue that is not on the agenda. The president will set the amount of time allowed for individuals to speak during open forum. The board asks that no charges or complaints be made against individual employees of the district or community during open forum. Remarks that reflect negatively on the character or motives of any person will be called out of order. Okay, tonight we have 4 open forum requests. And the first 3 of you are going to get 2 minutes each, and I'll explain the 4th one in a minute. First will be Lisa Hoff, and when you come up, give us your name and address at the microphone. After Lisa will be Sally Ellis, followed by David Stage, and then Debbie Defoe, who normally I'm reluctant to give out extra time right before a board meeting. However, she made a special effort to be here tonight, and it looks like she took emergency time off just to come and express some of her concerns at this open forum. So I'm going to give her 4 minutes, and she'll be last. So we'll start with Lisa Hoff.
Hello. I am Lisa Hoff. Just spell my name and your address.
Just give us your name and address.
Okay, Lisa Hoff at 2123 Mountain Street, Davenport, Iowa, 5283. I just wanted to take a quick minute to address concerns on the changing the 3 largest high schools back to regular scheduling from block scheduling. I'm a substitute teacher in the system and I have a daughter at Central who, I know the transition to high school was made a lot easier by having that block scheduling. Even though they're still learning the same amount of information, it was just kind of a relief for them to have only 4 classes to worry about. And the longer class times were really beneficial for her to ask any extra questions, or the teacher seemed to be more available to her. That's all. I just wanted to express my concern. I've talked to a few students at Central as well, and when I've subbed, I've just kind of asked questions for my own curiosity, and others have said the same things. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Next is Sally Ellis.
I looked him over here.
Thank you. I'm Sally Ellis, 2216 North Nevada, and I'm a retired head custodian, 33 and a half years with the district. Our custodial staff does all the listed plus more. Cut grass, shovel snow, clean grease traps, work on pumps, compressors, oil motors, change belts, gym lights, Permar night calls, filters, chemical tests, adding if needed, blowdowns, boilers, water heaters, pop-off, checked classroom tubes, preventative maintenance, energy savings, send workers in, set master clocks, outside timer lights, roof drains cleared, replace flush valves, playground equipment checks, setups, tear downs, any needed repairs, recycling, preventative maintenance, and energy savings. Always offer help as needed for PTA scouts, after-school eccentric programs and assemblies. Stranger danger, who's in the building? You wouldn't know. Rekey, teachers' desks, files, closets to keep safe their possessions. You don't know who they're hiring, you're not interviewing them. Keys with no control, knowledge of keys. Wherever they are, who lost them, can't find them, who went and took the keys and got copies made, and you might as well have a revolving door at each building. You can't control. It's gone. Your control is gone. Custodians do all these things I've listed. Janitors do not. That's outsourcing. Kids know and feel safe with our own school family. Dedicated, career-minded, loyal school staff. Keep your custodians. They are needed in the schools. Thank you.
David?
Dave Stage, 1907 West 3rd Street, Davenport, Iowa. I'm here today to talk to you about outsourcing, what it does to the community and the effect of the money in our tax dollars. We're gonna outsource. We got a company that's looking into outsourcing food service, custodians, maintenance, grass. You know, you're looking at what, $3 million? Where's that $3 million gonna go? We don't have a company big enough in our city to come in and outsource us. So we got a company in Chicago, maybe New York, maybe California. We're looking at, and I'm probably underestimating, $3 million, $4 million. Well, that's $4 million right out of our pocket. Tax dollars gone. What about that 1 cent sales tax that we use every day to do the upgrade in our buildings? That $4 million, that's a lot of 1 cent sales tax. And what about the people that you harm? The families. It's nonsense to even think about outsourcing, because outsourcing, all that does is bring in management. Management that we have here that evidently, from what I read, outsourcing brings in new management. So that's telling me that we need new management? Our management's not doing its job? That's what you're telling us when you look into outsourcing. That's what it boils down to. Not the mighty buck. It boils down to the people that manage the organization that they let fail because they can't control the money situation. They let it go. And we negotiated fairly and decent contracts with you, but then the state, for some reason, only gave you 1%. Well, in my book, in my eyes, I was waiting, as a union guy, I was waiting for you to come back to us and tell us, hey, we gave you 2%, but the state only gave us 1%. Can we work that out? Come on, guys, think about it. Don't you think we'd work with you? All you have to do is ask us. We gave you, the other day I sat on a little meeting, we had an outsourcing meeting. So we worked a deal as custodians to give up a half hour every time an 8-hour job opens up. Okay, that's good. Who's gonna pick up that half hour? That's what I wanna know. Where's that going? Got an answer? I don't think so. But that's where I'm going with this. And the people that do the job today, not the management, because they're gonna be here. Even though you bring in new management, you're gonna keep that management to control the management that you're gonna bring in that couldn't do the job in the first place, from what outsourcing tells me. This is what outsourcing, when you read about outsourcing, this is what they tell you. And some of the companies and the superintendents that I've read about says, you know, by God, outsourcing doesn't work, it cost us. We should have looked at management, because that's all we got was new management. I hope you see where I'm going, because if you look up outsourcing, that's what outsourcing does. And eventually, that costs you more money because that management wants more money. But then you got a guy you're paying $18 an hour to, that you turn around and start paying $12 an hour when you got this new outsourcing company to come in. Well then, so then you're gonna go to court with this person when he has to go because he forecloses on his house? Because when you start taking $5 an hour away from someone, that adds up quick. And that's our tax dollars as taxpayers paying for a service that's not being managed properly. That's where outsourcing comes in. So until people actually start managing the way they're supposed to, the tax dollars that you have, you'll always look into outsourcing. You'll never get ahead. But if you come back and you talk to the people and you tell the people, we gave you 2%, but we only got 1%, what do? You give back the 1%. My time's up.
Yep.
I'm sorry. Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave, for your passionate words. The next is Debbie Defoe.
Hello, my name is Debbie Defoe, 2128 Warren Street, Davenport, Iowa, 52804. I'm probably not so passionate. I'm here today with questions, statements, and opinions on the plan to outsource our custodial department. I realize we have financial hardship, but I'd like to know why we are making this drastic decision to outsource our valuable custodial department. Research by our own district has been done on this topic some time ago, of course, by the Director of Operations, Jim Kruger. Many staff members traveled to various schools to get firsthand knowledge of the outsourced schools. These schools were found by our district to be extremely lacking in cleanliness and in overall mechanical decline. The board at that time analyzed all the information presented and decided not to outsource. Has the district done current research on this matter? Do we have current information on other districts for comparison? We did some research of our own on this matter and found no positive results or interest in the idea or implementation of outsourcing. I've given everybody a copy of all this information. I'm gonna try to go through this next page real quick, because I do think this is very pertinent. We call Des Moines Community School Districts, which has 62 schools, 34,219 students. Now, I listed all the names of my contacts and their numbers on here, but I will not read those. They said they maintained custodial staff under their district umbrella and were not even considering outsourcing. Quote, too risky. Cedar Rapids Community Schools, 31 schools, 17,452 students. Never outsourced and no plans to. The person I talked to has 43 years of experience in operations and said that he knew a district close to them considered outsourcing, but after talking to them, weighed the financials and the repercussions and decided it was too risky. Iowa City Community Schools, 26 schools, 14,000 students. Never considered outsourcing and maintains all custodial under their district umbrella. And they quoted, "We value highly our custodial staff." Sioux City Community Schools, 24 schools, 15,321 students. No intention of outsourcing. Maintain staff under their district umbrella. Waterloo Community Schools, 19 schools, 11,431 students. Did outsource in the 90s, approximately 5 years from 1995 to 2001 with ServiceMaster. They signed a 5-year contract. They did keep their employees under their district umbrella, but contracted out their services. I talked to this gentleman for quite some time. He said they paid a lot of money to the contract service company. They took 90% of that money back to their company and only reinvested 10% into the school contract. The contract said they were to provide new equipment for the schools. This gentleman said they bought a few new vacuums, not enough even to cover all of the schools. The rest of the equipment was old and broken. When they brought in the cleaning solution, they brought it in 55-gallon drums. They brought 2 drums in, one was full, one was empty. So they used the school's water to pour part of the solution into the empty 55-gallon drum, fill both of them up with water, and charge them for 2 55-gallon drums. This was a consistent pattern. They were constantly being overbilled. Broken equipment was never repaired. Old, outdated equipment made employees, which were under the district, their jobs were harder when problems occurred. They were constantly billed for extra services, such as light bulb changes. They were the district light bulbs, but to put them in, it cost them $50 just for them to put them in. When I asked this gentleman why he maintained their services for 5 years, he said they tried to get out of their contract but could not. He said the only thing that got them through this period was that they had kept their custodians under their umbrella, and their custodians were loyal to them and did the best that they could to hold it together for that 5 years.
Hey, Debbie. Oh, I'm here. It's amazing how fast 4 minutes flies by. But could you wrap up where you want to go with this?
Sure.
Okay.
You guys have this piece of paper. There's other schools that have done the same thing that are totally disillusioned with this. It sounds good on the front end, but you get into it, and on the back end, every single one of these people that I've talked to is so sorry that they did it. And the rest of my speech you have, because there's other points that I'd like to make, but I guess my time's up. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Debbie, for taking time off of your work to come here and to share.
Thank you for the extra time.
Yep. And thank you, Lisa and Sally and David. Your words and everything that's presented here is really important, and we're happy to have you come and give us your perspectives. One of the things for you student board members, I realized I had forgotten to encourage you to participate in our meetings. Sometimes things get going pretty fast. I may not notice you, but if you need to say something, especially when we're in a discussion item or in the discussion portion of an agenda item, and we'll try to call on you, but try to get my attention if you need to say something, because your words are very important also. We'll move on to the consent agenda. May I have a motion?
Mr. President,
I'm sorry, who said that? Director DeSalvo.
I move that the board approve the consent agenda as written.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, call, Director Beck.
Yeah, I had a question about the two, the universal oh wait, no, never mind. It's for later on, sorry, I misread my document there, apologize.
Sure?
Yeah.
Okay, Director DeSalvo.
I have a question about the contract for Dr. Marquet Winston.
So the appropriate way on the consent agenda would be to remove that motion or that item from the consent agenda, and then it would be considered separately afterwards. Do you want, it's removed without a vote.
I don't want to remove that one.
Okay. All right, is there any other discussion on the consent agenda? Okay, call for the vote. Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Mayfield.
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
Director Beck.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of bills?
President,
Director DeSalvo.
I move that the board approve the following resolution as recommended by the administration for adoption of the bills from the bill listing periods of August 23rd, 2018 through September 5th, 2018. Resolved, all claims presented to the board having been duly certified as correct by the secretary, reviewed by the administration and board members, and they are hereby audited and allowed as just claims and warrants drawn on the treasury for the several amounts. Further resolved, the payment of claims and salaries be approved as presented for the periods of August 23rd, 2018 through September 5th, 2018.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All right, call for the vote. Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Mayfield.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
Director Beck.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Superintendent report.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to point out, it happened a while back, but I haven't formally recognized at the meeting, Central High School baseball coach Chris Carty was named the 2018 MAC Baseball Coach of the Year. I'd also like to introduce somebody tonight. Bruce McKay is the new specialist for security and student outreach, and he was hired through the money that we got permission from the School Budget Review Committee. And Bruce, thank you for being here tonight and want everybody to see you. He's a 30-year veteran of the police department and has a lot of experience working with youth. So thank you for coming aboard. Appreciate having you here. And I'd like John Border to come forward and talk about our first day activities. It's a little past first day. He came last board meeting and I got busy with other things and didn't recognize him. So John, sorry you had to come twice, but appreciate having you here. Talk a little bit about what first day is.
Sure, my pleasure. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening. My name is John Border, Community Education Specialist for Davenport Community Schools. And I'd like to share with you a great community success story related to our annual school supplies drive that we hold each year. Davenport partners with the First Day Project, and we have for over 20 years now. First Day Project is an effort that involves all Quad City school districts working together, as I said, for the past 20 years to secure school supplies, to assure that kids are prepared learners from the very first day of school. Education is an event, it's a daily event, and half of it is just showing up and being prepared. So by helping those students be prepared with those school supplies, it provides a really cogent, direct way to address the the impacts that poverty has on young people, but then also the social emotional aspects of feeling prepared and ready to do your job. We all have tools that we use in our daily endeavors, and students are no different. Up until 3 years ago, we partnered with the United States Postal Service. Many of you might remember that. The base of our support was in donations that were left with letter carriers on a weekend in August. Now we are finding success since that partnership dissolved in receiving cash contributions to our account with Community Foundation of Great River Bend and forming partnerships in the business community and nonprofit sectors to help meet the need. This year there were 2 significant events where supplies were collected, sorted, counted, and boxed for distribution. One was the United Way Day of Action back in July, and then in August, our annual volunteer school supplies drive at Wood Intermediate School. Quick summary of the business partnerships. The United Way Day of Action involved 41 different business partners that United Way has, doing workplace collections, cash contributions, etc. That effort resulted in 15,000 units of school supplies. When I say unit, a unit is a box of crayons, a unit is a backpack, a unit is a pencil, a unit is a pen, a unit is a folder. So that resulted in 15,000 units of school supplies and over $9,000 in funds generated by that effort. A footnote to that, for us in Davenport, we receive about 40% of the total donations that come through the First Day Project and rest with the Community Foundation of Great River Bend. So that $9,000 collection that day results in approximately $3,600 for our school district to be able to support the school supplies drive. Other partners involved were Mel Foster, A-Centric Credit Union, Hamilton Technical College, United Health Group, Mid-American Energy, QC Dentistry, Centennial Home Improvement, Carpetland, Menasha, and Muscatine provides our flattened boxes. And a special note for Galaxy One, who did an amazing fundraiser and raised over $10,000 for the First Day Project. So big thank you to Galaxy One. A number of our business partners also are innovating in providing us with packed backpacks. In other words, backpacks that are ready to be handed out to kids. That's powerful because as schools come back into session, as staff begins to come back and Unpack Your Backpack Day is held that day before school starts, that's a great time saver for our principals and staff to be able to have those packed backpacks ready to go and not to have to sort through the boxes and pack them themselves. 4 significant partners contributed in that packed backpack process. Try to say that. Packed backpack process. John Deere interns packed us 170. United Way's Young Leaders packed 60. Modern Woodman packed 200. And John Deere Harvester Works packed an amazing 400 backpacks for us this year. A great level of volunteer support from the community also. I'd like to acknowledge our friends at Target, City of Davenport, AmeriCorps and Youth Corps programs, the Davenport Police Department Explorers and Volunteers in Police Service, residents of the Gold Coast Apartments, the North Scott Fire softball team, and Families Inc. all showed up at Wood Intermediate in August to help us attack those school supplies. And then internally within Davenport Community Schools, Sherry Schultz at Wood has always been a great friend of the project, and we work with her every year to schedule the event in that building. Our operations department, the movers, we're talking 300 or 400 boxes, folks, and it's hot that time of year, so we appreciate their support. Food and Nutrition Services, our accounting department, who helps us apply distribution formulas so that everything that comes in is counted and apportioned to the schools according to enrollment and need. And then our learning supports department, who volunteer and help parents access those supplies at the school level. So this year, we're proud to report that we took in well over 65,000 units of school supplies for Davenport Community Schools. And then at the First Day Project level, we took in nearly $20,000, which means that for Davenport, that's about a $8,000 contribution this year. Right now, we are kind of operating on an economy of 50-50% between cash donations and supplies, but we are ready to meet the need. I just have to celebrate this as a community success. It's not just Davenport Community Schools, it's everyone across the community. We live in a very generous and conscientious community that, when they see an example of a need, they rise to meet that need. So I'm very proud to be associated with the project. Thank you.
Thank you, John, and that completes my report for tonight.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to items requiring action. May I have a motion regarding approval of a search firm?
Mr. President,
Director DeSalvo.
I move that the board approve the superintendent search committee recommendation for hiring Hazard Young A.T. Associates to conduct a superintendent search for a fee of $24,000.
Thank you. Is there a second? Is there any discussion? Okay, I'll call for the vote. Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Beck.
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
Director Mayfield.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of special education plan?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move that the board approve the district development service delivery plan for special education as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Before we get started, I'd like to ask Superintendent Tate, if it's okay, we ask Patty Pace Tracy to come up and explain this a little bit.
Please.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the district developed special education plan is a routine document that we have to have approved by the board. And so it was adopted in 2013, where a group of individuals got together that involves parents, teachers, both general ed and special ed, district administrators, and anyone else that you would like to have be a part of the plan. And we developed a plan based on the guidance and the recommendations that the Department of Education has put out to develop what our continuum of services are within our district, and that also addresses how teachers' caseloads are figured for special education students. Along with that, the plan includes our district assurances of the fact that we're going to implement our continuum and provide services as needed for special ed students. The requirement of that plan is it has to be basically looked at again every 5 years and come back to the board for readoption. Within the guidance of the Department of Ed, it doesn't say that you need to reconvene groups to look it over. It could be as easy as going to the working with the AEA Director of Special Education if you wanted to go that route, but we always are needing to put it up for public comment and see if there are any public comments related to it. So at the time that we posted the plan, we ended up having 9 public comments. So then a requirement is to reconvene a team, review those public comments that have been submitted, and then talk about the plan and determine if any changes need to be made or more clarifications need to be made to the content of the plan. So on August 28th, I believe is the date, we held a meeting with a group of individuals. The weather did impact some of our folks who elected not to come and not participate in the meeting that night. That's when we had the terrible storms and so forth. We ended up having 25 people who came together, but we only had 2 parents who came to that particular meeting. We had a number that canceled on us. So we actually reviewed in detail each of the public comments by putting them on a board and going through the content of each of those, and then having a discussion. And the majority of the discussion centered around concerns about not understanding what the plan actually was about, and so we did a lot of explaining about what the continuum is, and so we're going to clarify that better in the plan. Some participants that night noted that some of the comments, the public comments that were submitted were very personal in nature and didn't apply to the contents of what we were discussing. Others talked about the fact that they really did believe we only offered 2 different kinds of programming in special ed, which was co-taught classes or life skills. So we spent a lot of time really digging into what do each of the options mean and what does our district offer. And then there were concerns brought forth in the public comments about lack of training for teachers and paraeducators, which we took note of that. The plan doesn't per se talk about those things, but we said those were very important topics of discussion and we needed to move forward with talking more about that in depth on what we needed to do there. We do have a comprehensive plan for training teachers this year, but we don't for paras, and we said that was really good information and we took that feedback and we'll be considering that. So after going through that, we really wanted to ensure that we had parent input, so we scheduled a second meeting on September 5th. And within that meeting, we ended up having 10 total parents who attended that session. And we followed up again with, these were the comments from the previous meeting. These were the types of feedback that we got related to the plan. And then we spent a lot of time talking with those parents again about their ideas and their suggestions for how we can ensure that staff know about the plan, parents know about the plan, parents understand what a continuum is, and we walked away with a lot of very good ideas that night as well. Again, some of those things that were brought up are not things directly related to what should be in the plan, but we did take copious notes on that and we'll be moving forward with some actions to address some of their suggestions, which were actually really, really good. So after we do that, we come to you, and what the plan talks about is how we're going to provide services to students who have IEPs. And again, we note that to the greatest extent possible, we're going to provide those services in the least restrictive environment. But we also talk about the fact that in some cases that may be a very restrictive programming for some students who may need a special school, home instruction, which would be at the top of our continuum. And then we go through in detail and talk about each of the areas that falls within the continuum that we offer. So the least restrictive would be, of course, general education with only consultation, and we provide a definition of what that looks like. But to really put it in perspective, it could be a student who might be hard of hearing and wears cochlear implants, but doesn't require any kind of special ed services other than maybe some consultation from an audiologist to ensure that the cochlear implants are working correctly. But that might be a student who's on an IEP for that reason. The next level would be general education with consultation or accommodation. So when we were talking about that, when we think about what kind of a student requires that, because again, that's within our least restrictive environment setting. So we talked about it might be a student who has a visual impairment but requires enlarged print. And so an accommodation may mean that we have to provide enlarged print from the textbook or worksheets or whatever a student needs. And then it goes on to talk about general education with direct support in the general education classroom. And this seems to be one that most people understand and know about, which is really talking about at the elementary level what we've called, this is just what our district calls it, push-in services, where our special ed teachers go into the gen ed classroom. At the secondary, we talk about that in terms of co-teaching, where we're providing that specially designed instruction in the gen ed classroom. One thing we did do though was we really expanded our definitions and examples in detail so that it was more understandable for people. They indicated that was one thing we needed to do better. And then we have general education services with direct pull-out. We call that direct special education outside of the gen ed classroom. And that's for students that are in general education but need additional support. So they go with a special ed teacher somewhere outside of the general ed classroom to receive more intensive services. And then we have direct specially designed instruction. And that might be our students who have such great needs that they require services in more of a self-contained special education setting, and then may go out for brief periods throughout their day for whatever they're able to do. So that's really what this document outlines. And then of course, in addition to that, we do have special schools, which we do not have a special school in our district. There are very few of those across the state. We do not have one, but if a student required that level of service and was a Davenport student, then those would be options that IEP teams would consider. In addition to that, we have home instruction. We do have some students who are very medically fragile that are not able to attend school, and we go and provide home instruction to those students. And then if we have students in hospitals or institutions, and those students again could be placed anywhere around the state of Iowa, and those services are provided and we participate in those IEP meetings. And then lastly, we have to provide how we provide our early childhood services. So for early childhood, our students are involved in early childhood classrooms and then receive special education services, again, either in a push-out or a pull-out model there, depending on what the level of need is for our special ed students that are in our early childhood programming. We do note in our plan that contracting for early childhood services could be an issue or could be an option for us. And that would really come into play if we ever were in a position where we maxed out all of our available space for our early childhood students and had to start moving out into the community to provide those services. So we also list that as an option within the continuum. So that really denotes the big part of what the plan talks about. And then the other part of the plan really gets into caseloads for special education teachers and how caseloads are figured. So we talk about that a little bit in terms of, we look at caseloads in the spring and the fall. And we have a caseload worksheet which is attached to the plan. And we determine how many students a teacher has on their caseload, and if that's a manageable caseload or if we need to look at additional staffing. Additional staffing could be in the form of additional teachers, it could be in the form of additional adult assistants, whatever seems to make the most sense. So we have a formula that we use there as well. And we typically look at caseloads in October, the beginning of October, after school kind of settles down and we feel like we have a good base of who our students are going to be. And then in the spring, and it's used in the spring to look at staffing for the following year. But we're not limited to those 2 times. We also look at it whenever we need to. This goes into great detail about what that looks like and if you disagree and what you can do. We've never had to use that. We are pretty good about just working with our staff and figuring out what needs to happen to support kids. So that's the basis of the plan. And then lastly, we have district assurances that we're required to ensure that we're following. And we have to make sure we have those in place. So I don't know if I can say in a nutshell, but that is basically what our plan is about.
Thank you. Before we go on with discussion, are there any questions for Patty? Director Beck.
I do appreciate the expanded definitions of the continuum. I think that's really helpful. Just a question, how do parents get chosen to participate? Like, I know we have a lot of special ed parents who are highly involved, but do we get parents who are maybe less involved also? Like, do we send specific invites to people we know, or is it sort of a letter sent home to all special ed parents and anybody who wants to participate can sign up?
No, we don't send home a letter to all of our special ed parents. That would be approximately 2,600. And the intent of the plan is not that it be 2,600 parents. So the intent is to just bring together a group. For instance, they recommend you could use your school improvement advisory committee. We've not done that. We've tried to blend a different group together. So when we're looking for who would be a good fit, we reach out and ask for recommendations on who would be a good fit. But I want to be clear, we're not asking people to be there that are just what I would call yes people, that are pleased and happy with their services. I can tell you in the parent group that we had, we've been to due process with at least 1 or 2 of those parents. We've had another parent that I've worked closely with who's not been happy with services, but we've worked through the process until we've reached a point of things are good now. So we're not looking for people that think special ed is just the best thing ever in Davenport. We actually want feedback from a number of different people. I can tell you that within the 9 public comments that we received, those weren't always pleasant either, and we walked through each of those in detail and had a discussion about what the contents of each of those public feedbacks were. So no, I mean, I don't believe that having just a group of people that readily agree with everything we're doing really bodes well for us, because that doesn't always give us the feedback we need to improve our services.
Thank you.
Director DeSalvo.
How do you solicit public comments?
We put it on the district website and indicated that it was open. It was a hot link button on the page of the web page, the initial web page of the district website, and then an e-blast went out to all special ed parents that it was available for comment. We didn't do that the first time and we didn't have any comments, so we resubmitted it, and that had been on there for just over 10 days, and we didn't have any public comments. So we actually resubmitted it again after we had gotten feedback. Parents didn't know it was there, and then we left it out for a total of 21 days then.
The caseload determination worksheet, who completes those?
So it can be done by multiple different people. It can be done by the special ed teacher. It can be done by a district special ed specialist. It's typically those folks who complete those. Parents don't complete that. There's a note in the plan where it talks about that's not something that is part of parent discussion, but it basically falls on teachers because they're the ones who need to do their caseload. Or if they're saying, well, I've got too many students, or someone says, well, I'm not sure that's right in caseload points, specialists can also jump in and do that.
Can you tell me how often the specialists are in the schools? Daily. Because I had a comment from a school that they hadn't seen their specialist in 2 years.
I'm shocked to hear that, and I think they would be shocked to hear that as well. Who told you? Was it an administrator?
I'll share that with you offline.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I would be shocked to hear that.
Okay, so that's not normal.
That would be very abnormal for the special ed specialists.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, I would be interested in hearing that.
Thank you. I
Because if
appreciate
that is true, we need to fix it.
it. Thank you.
Any other questions? Director Hayes?
Have several district assurances here, but what type of assurance do we have, or is there any follow-up system that can basically verify that everything is, whatever is stated on the IEP, that all the meetings are held, that everything is done according to the way that it should be done? Is there any type of way that people can be held accountable for what they're not, or what's going on, that we can follow up and measure?
That's a good question. So if we look at providing services and completing paperwork appropriately and providing the appropriate processes that are supposed to occur within special education, again, we're a very large district. And so we are training teachers a lot to know how to do it. The AEA is also responsible for supporting us with that. They're actually responsible for a number of pieces of special education services that are provided, reevaluations, initial evaluations, and so forth. Sometimes we don't know if something hasn't been done or if processes or procedures haven't been done necessarily until a parent raises a concern and they exercise their procedural safeguards. That's one way sometimes we find those things out. We also do random compliance checks where we're pulling paperwork to ensure things are being done correctly. I just recently did that and found that we did not do what we were supposed to do through a random check. So we're following up on ensuring that that is corrected and fixed. So we try to do random compliance checks. We may hear about it through different sources, or if parents are angry or upset, they may call me and say, you know, this isn't happening, or they may file due process, and that's another way we find those things out.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Any other questions or comments for Patty? I have one. It's kind of an area of question. So this had come up a few months ago, I think, for approval by the board, didn't it?
Yes.
And and I don't recall exactly. I think there was concern that that parents hadn't had adequate time for public input or something, if I recall right. So it's been delayed, and you've had this. And over that time, some parents have talked with me about the appearance that the plan is following the state template so closely that it's not sufficiently the Davenport plan because it's more the state plan. Is that accurate, or can you help me with that part?
Sure. I think if you review the plan now compared to the state templates, what you'll see is that based on the comments that we had and the feedback that we got from our two groups that we met with, we actually went in and provided much greater detail on each of the areas that is part of our plan. Now, if you look at the samples from the state, all three of them are very generic. And prior to our public input sessions that we had, ours would have been very similar to that. In 2013, that's what we developed. And we based it off of the state template. But now we've provided a great deal of detail in the plan with a great deal of explanation. I think you would see that it very much now reflects Davenport.
I've noticed Sandy's sitting in the background, I think, or in the back of the room. I'm just going to ask, and I don't even know if she is, if she's looked at this plan or if it's part of her purview with what she's doing with you in the district. Is she? Just let me ask that.
No,
So she's not
no,
involved?
this
So
is
I-
not directly tied to the.
Okay, so I'm not going to ask any other.
This is a readoption of the plan from 2013.
All right, that's all I've got. Thank you for your presentation.
I
Is
would
there,
like to say,
yeah, I'm going to ask for additional discussion. Director Mayfield.
your last presentation, am I on here?
It's on
here.
Just make sure you're
Okay.
speaking.
Last presentation that you gave, I had asked if I could get all the items that were shown. So I hope I can still get that.
Yes, thank you for the reminder.
But I would, not being here 2013, is it possible to get the information that is going to be in its detail that you're going to be presenting or handing in?
The
As far as
plan?
yes.
I thought all of you had a copy of the plan. It's
On
Did-
board docs?
I actually have a hard copy though, Clyde, I think I have an extra copy if
Well-
that's all right.
If she could help me get it. if
Okay.
that's the case.
Yeah, okay, you bet.
But that other, the presentation, if I
Yep,
could
I
get
just
that
made a note of that.
hard
Yep.
copy of that.
My apologies that I forgot that. I knew you asked for that and I slipped my mind.
Thanks.
Any additional discussion? All right, we'll call for the vote. Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Mayfield.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
Director Beck.
Yes.
My vote is yes, motion carries, thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of contract with Power School?
I'm locked up, sorry, I would read it to you.
Mr. President,
Director Beck.
mine's not
We're
showing
all locked
either.
up. We're all
Sorry.
stuck.
Internet went down.
We're all locked. Is that it? Are you up?
Okay,
Well, I wanna see the attachment. No, go to the next one.
it's not
No,
moving
it's
to the
stuck.
next one. Yeah, mine's not. Yeah, the internet's working, I guess, the board docs isn't.
Well, if that's the case, it's going to make this part of the meeting difficult, if not impossible.
I have the actual, oh, there it is, it just showed up. Okay. Yeah.
We all went on, we're on.
So should I make my motion?
Go ahead.
I move that the board approve the contract with Power School in the amount of $124,860.47 for the hosting fee and support for Business Plus software.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Read it last night.
Is there any discussion? Does everybody have access to the information?
I didn't get the attachment though, but I read it yesterday, but I got it.
Can you display that contract?
I read it yesterday.
I apologize for not being able to access that information.
You could describe it?
Excuse me?
You could describe it, I have the document open already.
Say that again?
I have the document open, although it looks like it maybe is pulling up slowly. Nope.
Well, the question is whether the board wants to proceed. How important is it to proceed with that contract, Superintendent Tate?
Claudia? The question is, how important is it to proceed with this contract?
Sorry, how important is it to
For the Power School,
be able to see it?
to what happens if they delay approval for 2 weeks?
We would probably be able to continue using our software, but it'd be really good if we had the contract. It's the software that is used for human resources department, payroll, accounts payable, accounts receivable, purchasing, our general ledger, our accounting software.
I should have looked at it for the
I
meeting,
understand.
but here are all the contracts.
Right.
So if anybody wants to look at
Well,
it,
well, hang
then
on,
they
hang
can
on.
look at it. Cause it'll probably come up, okay?
Well, so,
Okay, it's up there now.
so we've got a number of these that we're going to be approving this evening, a bunch of contracts, and so the sense of urgency, sometimes, Claudia, is something that we do ask if we don't have all the information. Is it on our computers though?
Can you scroll down? No, ours is.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, it's purple. That was right. It's purple. I'm good then. She can have it.
Well, I tell you what, I'm going to take a poll on the board members. Are you comfortable in continuing the vote? You want to do it manually? We have the contract right here. Most of you probably reviewed it over the weekend, and you may be familiar enough to vote on it. Or is there a sense of pushing it off to a later date? Director Beck.
I just want to say, I think we're gonna have this problem with all of the documents that are forthcoming.
Right.
So I personally am comfortable. I've got all of them open already, but if we're gonna, it might be worth taking a break just to see if we can't get things.
Well, I don't want to take a break just for that at this point. We'll see where everybody is. Director DeSalvo?
I'm good. I was gonna ask the term of the contract, but is it a year? I think it was a year. I read it yesterday, I know.
It's 124.
So it's gotta be a year.
You would think.
I read all these yesterday and they're running together, so.
It is for a year.
And it's Pebble, so I'm good.
Yes.
All right, Director Potts.
Yeah, I did my homework, I'm ready.
Okay, Director Hayes.
I'm ready.
Director Gossa. Director Mayfield.
Yes.
Okay, if everybody's good, then we'll continue. We'll take these one by one. This is the approval of the contract with Power School. I have a motion and a second. Is there any additional discussion? Okay, call for the vote. Director Beck.
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
Director Gossa.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Mayfield.
Yes.
Director, my vote is yes. All right, motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of driver's education contract?
Mr. President?
I'm sorry, I apologize. Your voice is a little different and I
Fighting a cold.
can't quite capture
It's
it.
Bruce talking.
Hello.
Director DeSalvo.
Guaranteed.
I move that the board approve the administration's recommendation for the contract for driver's education services provided by the Mississippi Bend Area Education Agency for $370 per student.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? We all good? I do have the contract, any of these, we have the contracts right here, if there are any questions, if we don't see them. And the total estimated cost on that one is $98,000. If there are no additional concerns, I'll call for the vote. Director DeSalvo?
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
Director Mayfield?
Yes.
Director Gossa?
Yes.
Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director Beck?
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. I have a motion regarding approval of hearing interpreters services.
Mr. President,
Director Potts.
I move the board approve the administration's recommendation for a contract with the MBAEA Mississippi Bend Area Education Agency for hearing interpreter services for the 2018-19 school year in the amount of $889,811.18.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director DeSalvo? I do have a question. It's a specific amount, and I'm curious how we develop a specific amount for something that seems like it would be variable.
So the specific amount is based on the salary and benefits of each of the hearing interpreters individually. So that's why it comes up to such a unique dollar amount.
How many interpreters are there?
So for this coming year, we have 13 students. We have one floater interpreter that we have in place in the event that we need a substitute interpreter for that day because a student cannot go without their interpreter services. So we have a total of, on our contract, we have a total of 13 students listed. One of those students is actually from another district and we're providing the services. And then another student is questionable if that student is still attending our district. So one of the fees on our contractor list will actually be sent to the district of residence for one student. So those will just be flow-through dollars that district will end up paying for the hearing interpreter. And then one other student, we're not sure if that student is going to be coming to our district, and then we will not have that expense either.
So it sounds like if I understood what you're saying, there are 13 students that require an interpreter.
Yes.
And we're paying $900,000 a year for those 13 students.
Close to, yes.
Which I can't do those numbers in my head any longer. Huh? You get a calculator, because it looked like it was probably something over 80,000 per student, and I'm thinking I must be doing something wrong in my math in my head.
So one student, because again, it's based on the salary and benefits of each hearing interpreter.
Right.
One student is at 68,000, just over 68,000. One is at 70,400, and that is the out-of-district student that we're providing services for. So those expenses will go back to the resident district of that student. One is at 62.5. So each of them, depending on their salary and benefits, that's how the total dollar amount is figured out. And then many of them are in the 50s, 59,000, 43,000 for one, another 63,000. So it's based on the salary and benefits of each interpreter.
So the interpreter is a full-time equivalent person and is dedicated to a student, is that correct?
That is correct.
And
one thing I need to add though, Ralph, we have to also pay mileage. And that is an estimate of about $10,000. And then if we need substitutes, in addition to, we have blanketed $25,000 for that. And then we have a $2,850 administrative fee. That totals up to the $890,000.
the you said out of residence student, I think you said.
We have a student who actually resides in a different school district than Davenport. That student actually lives in a different district and is coming to Davenport for our services for students who are hard of hearing.
And we ran into this a few years ago where the tool that's provided by the state was not sufficient, and it's a billing tool, I believe.
Tuition billing tool.
And does that billing tool actually allow the other district to pay, if you bill that other district 70,000 or whatever you said the number was, does the state allow, and does the billing tool allow, and does the other district actually pay what you bill to that district?
Yes, so for the hearing interpreter, this is just gonna be a flow through. They will pay actual costs for the hearing interpreter. And in addition to that, they'll be paying us for the services that we provide through our teacher for students who are hard of hearing. So we'll be billing them also for instructional costs as well as the actual costs of the interpreter.
Do they pay any administrative cost for your administrative services as well, or just for the interpreter services?
We figured that, what's called a general program cost, we figure that into the tuition billing tool, so it's accounted for in there.
All right, thank you. Is there any other discussion? Director Peck.
So first of all, it's my understanding that these are skilled jobs. These aren't just people who are, you can't just take like a 3-month certificate and become a hearing interpreter.
They're licensed.
Right, and so I understand why they make a significant amount of money, and it's worth it. But my question is about mileage. So
Yes.
if these people are working in the school every day, they should be theoretically in the same school for the most part,
Yes.
correct?
Mhm.
And they all live in the area.
Right, some of them do travel. If needed, they might be traveling depending on how much time a student requires interpreter services. They may travel between 1 or 2 buildings. It just depends
So
on how their schedule is.
The
laid
mileage
out.
is for building to building, not like
Right,
getting to and
it's
from
within the
work.
district, yes, correct.
Director DeSalvo.
Is this grant-based or is this general fund-based?
This is special ed supplemental dollars.
Any other discussion? Okay, and we'll call for the vote. Director Potts.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Mayfield.
Yes.
Director Beck.
Yes.
My vote is yes, motion carries, thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of Medicaid billing services?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move the board approve the contract with Timberline Billing Services for billing of school-based services to Iowa Medicaid at the rate of 6% of the net Medicaid reimbursement retained by the district.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director Beck.
Sorry, I just want clarification. This is money that we end up getting reimbursed
Yes.
from Medicaid? So we
Yes.
pay for somebody to process claims and then we get reimbursed from Medicaid for that?
Right, we're required for
Yeah.
any student on an IEP, we're required to, if they're eligible for Medicaid, we're required to seek consent from parents. They don't have to agree to allow us to bill Medicaid or not. But for those that do agree, then we have to keep copious documentation on what the Medicaid billable services are. And then Timberline will be our agent who we submit those documents to and will ensure that they're coded properly and before they are submitted to Medicaid for reimbursement. So then they would get a 6% return on however much we end up billing Medicaid for.
Director Beck, was that sufficient?
Yes, but I do have one other question. So I'm guessing this is because this is such a highly specialized system, right?
It is very.
Having somebody who knows how to submit the proper documentation would be a full-time employee, correct?
Medical coding. And within my office, it is so demanding to keep track of Medicaid that of the staff I have in my office, I have a specialist who's dedicated almost fully to the position along with probably at least a half-time or more secretary to support the work because it's so demanding with all of the documentation and ensuring it's correct.
Okay, and so would there be a benefit to, I guess that's with the assistance of Timberline as
Yes.
well? So if we didn't have the assistance of Timberline, it's not like we could fill that in with a person or something like that?
No,
Okay.
and we actually tried that a few years ago, and we felt that because Medicaid coding is highly specialized, that we were not doing justice to what needed to be done, and we needed experts, and Timberline, this is what they do.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Any other discussion? I've got a couple questions. Timberline is experts, so then do we audit their work also to somehow know that they're experts?
Medicaid audits, periodically they will do audits to ensure that what we're billing for is appropriate. We don't audit Timberline, and I can't speak for them as far as their own, if they have an internal system, that's a great question. But I will tell you that Medicaid will actually periodically conduct audits to ensure that our documentation is correct and appropriate. We went through that about a year ago where Medicaid actually did an audit.
Okay, and then it's 6% on a range of hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that 6%, so that goes to them, right?
Yes.
And how do we pay for that 6%?
It comes out of our special ed dollars again.
Okay.
And it comes out of our supplemental special ed dollars.
And how's that funded?
Well, through our Medicaid dollars that we actually get.
So okay, I just want to make sure
Yeah.
that 6% feels like it's something that's coming out of the district, but you're saying no.
No, it's the money that we generate through our Medicaid billing. 6% of the money that we generate through our Medicaid billing goes to Timberline for being our billing agent.
If it didn't go there, where would it go?
Well, it would have to come out of probably our weighted dollars.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Okay, we'll call for the vote. Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
Director Mayfield.
Yes.
Director Beck.
Yes.
My vote is yes, motion carries, thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of contract with Recover Health of Iowa?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move the board approve the contract with Recover Health of Iowa for the rate of 56.32 hourly for skilled nursing services.
Thank you. Is there a second? Is there any discussion? Director Gosa.
You ready?
I'm ready.
All right, I just had a question. After you scroll down a ways, it looks like we had 3 bids, and you went with the highest one. I was just wondering why that is. And they're from the Cedar Rapids area, and then the other one's from Dubuque, and then Unity Point's here locally, correct?
Yes, so that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. So what we do is we try to use the same provider. We try to honor parents who currently have services in place for their students through an organization. And so we try to honor that and respect that and use that same company, so it's a continuity of services for a family both at school and at home. So the rates that you see and the contracts that we have are actually providers that are already providing services in the homes of the students that those 3 companies are noted for. So as part of trying to ensure that we assist and be helpful to parents in keeping the continuity going, we then use those same providers in the school setting.
Okay, so the provider that you went with, is that because those students use that provider? Is that the deal?
Right, so we actually have 3 different providers.
Right.
Yeah, and so we're using the provider that the parent also is using for their child in the home setting.
Right, so then why would you have gotten bids from the other two if you were gonna use, that's my question.
Are you referring to Recover, Unity Point, and
Yeah,
Universal?
cause you got one at 56.32 an
Right.
hour, one at 50 and one at 41.
So we
That's
didn't-
a big difference.
No, you're right, and I didn't do a good job of clarifying myself, we didn't get bids. So Recovery Health, or Recover Health is actually providing services for, two of our students in the district. Unity Point is providing services for 4 of our students in the district. And Universal Pediatrics is providing services for 1 of our students in the district. So that's why we have all 3 of those companies listed.
Okay, and then the people that work there, they actually live here, they just work for that company and that company's based out of there, they're not coming all the way here.
Well, that's a great question, because I will tell you, over the span of the last 2 years, skilled nursing services within our communities have, it's become a really big deal, and they've been incredibly difficult to get. So I don't know what happened or why that happened, but companies that we used to use to provide nursing services disappeared from our community, and it's only been really recently that these organizations have come back in to provide services again for our students. So I don't know what happened out there, but in trying to just keep the continuity of care in place, we go with those. So I can't speak to that, Dan, and knowing if
So this
they're
person might be driving
They
here
very
from
well
Cedar
could be.
Rapids and we have to pay the mileage?
nope, we just pay this flat rate.
Okay. But their time starts from like when they leave their house?
We have always paid them from the time they start with a student.
Okay.
So I'm guessing, I can't speak to this, I'm guessing they're more likely local and they work for the company, but I can't say that for sure.
I imagine they meet them at the bus or something and ride on the bus with them probably?
Yes, for some of our students, they
Okay.
require that and they ride the bus, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm, no, good questions.
Director Hicks.
Just for clarity, we have 3 companies that we're using,
Yes,
but we're only approving the 5632 for the one. What about the other 2?
so one of them went within the consent agenda, I believe it was Universal Pediatrics, is that correct, Mary? Because the price was lower?
Any other discussion? It is curious that I understand going with the highest responsive bidder, which is something we're gonna talk about later in policy, but it seems contrary to what we normally do. And as I looked at it and thought about it, and I thought, and I understand your rationale, but if the cost was $250 an hour, would you be asking us to approve that as well, just because of continuity?
We would be negotiating that price, or we would look at hiring our own. We would not pay that kind of a price per hour for a skilled nurse. And we would have to have that conversation with the parent to say, we would be able to get that much cheaper with another company.
But it's a challenge using, the rationale that you want the continuity.
Right.
And so maybe you negotiate to $200 an hour or something. I'm just curious about how you get to that decision.
Well, again, right now, we base that decision on continuity of care.
Right.
And we try to ensure that it's a sense of peace of mind for parents who have very medically fragile children, and students that are very medically fragile who require full-time nursing. There are most delicate children in the district and they require a lot of care and service. So it's a big peace of mind for parents to have that continuity of care in place to support their students at school. When they know that it's the same company providing those services. So that's why we've tried to do that and be consistent with that.
Again, I'm just trying to do the numbers in my head, but at some point, it feels like you'd get to a threshold where it might be, like in this case, we're paying an extra $15, which is, it's not quite 50%, but it's probably an additional 40%.
Well, what I would tell you is this, if I went to Universal Pediatrics and said, I need 7 nurses, I'm not sure they would be able to even provide them to me. Because some of our agencies are struggling with even hiring staff as well. So I don't know at this point in the community within the economy that I could go to any provider and say, I need this many nurses, can you get them for me? And we would be able to get them.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Director Gosa.
I just kind of have another question along those lines. Instead of going to an outside source for this stuff, is there a way if we do get people in to hire them directly first, or can we not do that?
No, we can do that, and we actually looked at doing that last year, and we did it in one case when we were unable to get nursing services. But it's bigger than just hiring a nurse, because we have to ensure that if that person is absent, we have a backup plan. I will tell you that our school nurses are phenomenal in jumping in and helping out. We have exceptional school nurses who do an outstanding job in our district, but for some of our most medically fragile students, it would be a tall order to fill if we hired our own nurse and that person called in sick, trying to fill those shoes of ensuring that we were able to manage all of the medical orders that are in place. But I will tell you this, it is an ongoing discussion. We actually are gonna have a meeting about that, because we aren't sure that that's not the right way to go for us in the future, so we are talking about those things. But logistically, we have to figure out every little nuance of what it would entail for us to do that as a district.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious if there was a way to get someone that's interested in doing it and get them trained to do it.
No, that's, yes, and
they're
that's a great
right
question.
here.
And we had a phenomenal person that we hired, and that person quit on us, so we were very sad about that. But we believe it's an ongoing conversation we need to continue to have.
Thank you.
Superintendent Tate would like to make a comment.
You've used the word medically fragile several times. Without being specific about a student, explain what some of those cases look like and what sort of skills a nurse has to have.
Sure. So medically fragile students might be students who require ongoing assessment every 15 minutes to 30 minutes to 45 minutes, meaning their vitals have to be taken, their temperature has to be taken, all sorts of issues like that. Monitoring whatever monitors they come with. We have students who come with a variety of monitors that measures all sorts of output. They may have to do urine, they may have to measure urine output and all sorts of different things. In addition to that, it could be students who have feeding tubes and require feeding every so often. Could be hourly, could be every 45 minutes. So they're highly intensive students who require a great deal of support in order to be safe within the school environment and to be healthy within the school environment.
Thank you for that. Any additional discussion? All right, call for the vote. Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Beck.
Yes.
Director Mayfield.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
My vote is yes, motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of contract with Unity Point at Home? Director DeSalvo.
Mr. President, I move that the board approve the administration's recommendation for the contract with Unity Point at Home for the rate of $50 per hour to provide skilled nursing services.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? I'll call for the vote then. Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
Director Beck.
Yes.
Director Mayfield.
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
And my vote is yes, motion carries. Thank you. Mary, I've got two additional contracts here that I don't see. Oh, okay, great, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to discussion items. Up first is policy. Director Beck, do you want to lead that?
Sure. So we have been working on a purchasing policy to emphasize locally sourced work as much as possible. And as we started to work on this, we realized that the purchasing policy we have is really something that applies mostly to purchasing equipment and furniture and things like that. So we decided to propose to remove things like contracting work from that purchasing policy. And then, sorry, when I say we, I mean the policy committee. And then develop a new policy that is on responsible bidding practices and submission requirements for presenting bids for the construction of school projects, so construction projects. And the goal here was really to do our best to include safety, security, and people who live and work in the area as much as possible. But of course, we need to be within legal limits and do it appropriately. So I am gonna turn over the discussion on the actual responsible bidding practices to Director Gosa, but I think that's, yeah, we're not voting on, are we voting on approving these as well, or?
No, it's just discussion.
Okay, so I'd like to turn the discussion of this responsible bidding practice over to Director Gosa, who was one of the people who spent the most time putting this together.
Thank you, Director Beck. As she said, actually President Johansson and myself, we spent a lot of time on this, just with the way that all of our change orders have been happening and everything. It just seems like we're not defining what responsible is, and we're just going with the lowest bidder all the time, and then they hit us with change orders. And in my line of work, I see this all the time. So we were trying to determine how we were going to determine who was responsible. So we went through some criteria, and she hit on that with the OSHA training, a drug and alcohol policy, that they need to have on file, so that if you go to so for people that aren't with a construction background, when you go to a construction site, there's the general contractor's trailer, and they should have all this stuff on there. If anywhere I go to work, I have to provide and I have an OSHA 30 card because I go above and beyond, but you have to provide that. They take a copy of it and keep it on file, because say OSHA does walk on the job or anybody else, I mean, we just don't want anybody jumping on our schools, working with our students there, without them there. Just anybody off the street. We need to have the proper training to do this. And one other thing that we have in here too is to have an accredited apprenticeship program, and we're working on the CT program to get like pathways to trades and stuff like that. So that kind of ties into all this. Has everybody had a chance to look at this? Does anybody have questions? Go ahead.
I have several questions, but one of the areas that I can't get mine up, I was wondering if you could review some of the issues. How do we suggest giving an advantage to local businesses? And I was wondering if you can just talk about that, because that's.
I will let you handle that, because that was your biggest stick on the whole thing to get this through. So I'm going to let you go ahead and talk about that. How's that?
So, you want me to answer my own question?
Yes, that's perfect.
So, Director Beck.
I was actually gonna ask that exact question, because I was under the impression that giving credits and things like that, we're getting into some fuzzy area there, so.
Oh, actually, we aren't.
Okay.
We've had this reviewed by our lawyer, and the first time around, she said what we were doing was illegal. And so we've made some modifications, and basically we can give an advantage to Iowa firms. And so what we have proposed in here, and the reason that we wanted to bring it up tonight is so that it is discussed, that it's an idea, whether we want to pursue this idea further. Sealed bids, this is not, I don't think this has, oh, here it is. So what we talk about is we talk about determination of lowest responsible bidder, and we say the following criteria, and this may not make sense when I'm talking about it, but that the following criteria shall be used as credit toward a bid in determining the lowest responsible bidder. A maximum credit of 5% is allowable. If the school board applies any credit toward a bid, the credits will not reduce the amount of contract. Example, $1 million bid receives $50,000 local bidder credit. For purposes of determining the lowest bidder, the contractor's bid would be, in that case, $950,000. So I hope that's kind of understandable. But we have a couple of different options in here. One is to receive up to a maximum of 5%. There's another one for receiving another 5% or $50,000, whichever is less, depending on some additional things. And then we talk about in the event that a local bidder does not bid on the project, a bidder that has a principal place of business located within a county contiguous to Scott County for at least 1 year may receive a credit up to 1%. So the point of all of that is to try to, from my perspective, when we go to lowest responsible bidder, and we had a bidder, if I recall correctly, that was out of San Diego. And the difference was peanuts. And I thought, why are we giving all of our money to California? And this is something that has been used by other districts in the state of Iowa, but it's a pretty radical change for us because we have never considered something like this. So I think the trying to reward local and then strengthen maybe some of the requirements for safety are probably the two notable differences here. You're leading the discussion.
Well, I may be misremembering what the lawyer said, but I thought we were only allowed to state preference for the state of Iowa, not for within a geographic vicinity. Is that correct?
It is, all of this is focused on the state, but it does talk about a geographical area with contiguous, there's a contiguous part to Scott County. If there's a sense that the board wants to continue this discussion, we're gonna have more discussions with our lawyer. This is just a jumping off point.
Well, I did want to say that I think this is an important change, and I think it gives us, I think it's an important change, especially given including the safety, the OSHA standards, making sure that the people who are working in our schools are up to the standards that we would hold them to, and then keeping work within the local area as much as possible is important, I think, especially as we try and develop programs that allow students to participate in this type of work. But I welcome any other comments or questions. Dr. Tate?
So with this example, let's say we had two bids, one for $1 million from the local, one for $960,000 from an Illinois company. The local company would win. It would still cost us $1 million if we lost $40,000. I think you need to realize, is it worth that $40,000? And it may be. That's the sort of thing you need to think about.
Right, and that is something thank you for bringing that up, because I did want to clarify that. When Director Johansson mentioned that, for example, a $50,000 credit, the contractor's bid would be $950,000. The price is still $1 million. So we would still be paying $1 million, but we would be awarding the bid based on a lesser price. And that is assuming that the local is important to us. So it's not necessarily saving us money on every project. It's more about keeping business local. So, thank you. Comments? Director Gosa?
So part C on this says, a bidder with a local workforce shall receive a credit equal to 2% of $20,000, whichever is less of the lowest bid submitted by a bidder without a local workforce. Workforce means at least 25% of the bidder's construction employees reside within 50 miles of where the work is to be performed. So that would include Illinois. It's in the Quad Cities area.
Okay. Director DeSalvo?
I am in favor of this. It just, somebody's gonna have to manage and maintain this information and make sure that it's all kept accurate and on file at all times. So that would be my only hesitation, is that we have to have somebody that would be the record keeper of all of this information. But I would like to continue discussions on it because I think it's a very good topic.
Director Johansson?
Yeah, I think that the policy committee's sense was that if there was a sense of moving forward, that there would probably be additional discussion. And yet, I do think for me, there's a sense of urgency to some of this, getting it done. And so I would imagine that the next steps, if it's kind of the sense of the board and the sense of the chairperson for the committee, that we would contact our lawyer next week, because she's not available this week, and that probably Director Gosa and I would continue to work on clarification, and I think that there would be also a strong component, I think, in a discussion with the administration, to the extent Mr. Maloney, Claudia, those that are involved in it, because it could get really messy, as you pointed out. But if that's the way we go, then we would, I think, create a sense of urgency around it.
Any other comments, questions?
Okay, if there's none, thank you for leading that discussion. Let me see where we are. It looks like we can adjourn this regular meeting. What we're going to have here is we have two meetings tonight. First is the regular meeting, which we're just going to conclude, and next we have an annual meeting that is required that we have every year at this time. So I'm going to ask the board to adjourn, and then we'll, let's see, what time is it here? You know what? We'll probably take a 6-minute break between the end of this regular meeting and the annual meeting. So may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. This regular meeting is adjourned. All right, I call this annual meeting of the Davenport Community School District Board of Directors to order. First, may I have trying to make sure I do this correctly, may I have a resolution, an annual resolution for the payment of bills?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move the board approve the following annual resolution for the payment of bills. Be it resolved that in between regularly scheduled board meetings, that after the bills have been reviewed by the board and verified by the administration, board secretary, and superintendent, the board president may be authorized to approve payment of claims and warrants drawn on the treasury for the several amounts, including payments, claims, and salaries. Be it further resolved, the board will officially approve these warrants at the next regular board meeting, and the warrants will be entered in the minutes of record.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, we'll call for the vote. Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director DeSalvo?
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
Director Mayfield?
Yes.
Director Gosa?
Yes.
Director Beck?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding designation of financial institutions?
Mr. President,
Director DeSalvo.
I move that the board approve the administration's recommendation for the board to adopt the following resolution. Resolved by the Board of Directors of the Davenport Community School District in the counties of Scott and Muscatine, state of Iowa, that the following named financial institutions are hereby designated as depositories of funds for said school district in amounts not to exceed the amounts hereinafter set forth. And the school district's treasurer is hereby authorized to deposit the Davenport Community School District's funds in the amount not to exceed named for said financial institutions. For Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., Davenport, Iowa, $60 million. U.S. Bank, Davenport, Iowa, $60 million. Northwest Bank and Trust, Davenport, Iowa, $20 million. First Midwest Bank, N.A., Davenport, Iowa, $5 million. Quad City Bank and Trust, Davenport, Iowa, $60 million. Triumph Community Bank, Davenport, Iowa, $60 million. Bluegrass Savings Bank, Bluegrass, Iowa, $5 million. Southeast National Bank, Davenport, Iowa, $5 million. Walcott Trust and Savings Bank, Walcott, Iowa, $5 million. Iowa Schools and Joint Investment Trust, Des Moines, Iowa, $45 million. The Education Liquidity Fund, IPAS/TELF, Des Moines, Iowa, $45 million. Blackhawk Bank and Trust, Davenport, Iowa, $5 million.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director Gosa.
I just have a quick question. I guess I never thought of this before. So since we have money in all those banks, does that mean whenever you have to write bills out, you have to write one from each of those banks or something? You have to like split it up between all of them, and or how's that work?
Thankfully, no. We do not have money in all of these institutions. This is your authority to allow us to deposit in any one of those financial institutions an amount up to that limit, but we do not currently have money in all of those institutions. Our operating funds for paying payroll and paying vendor bills all run through Quad City Bank and Trust. We have one checking account, so we're not having to divide things up. I do transfer money between banks when needed to meet our operating expenses and to take advantage of the best interest rates.
Thank you for that. One other question then. How do you decide that Quad City Bank and Trust is the bank you go with and not one of the, I'm just asking.
Every 3 years, we do a formal request for proposal for banking services. We are just beginning our second year of a 3-year agreement with Quad City Bank for them to be our main provider of banking services. And that's for our general depository and for our main checking accounts for paying those bills, as I mentioned.
Thank you.
Any additional discussion? All right, we'll call for the vote. Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Beck.
Yes.
Director Mayfield.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding the annual settlement report?
Mr. President,
Director Beck.
I recommend that the board approve the annual settlement report.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Is everybody satisfied with everything there? Okay, thank you. I'll call for the vote. Director Beck.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Mayfield.
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
My vote is yes, motion carries, thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of level 1 and 2 investigators?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I recommend the board approve the level 1 and 2 investigators as presented.
Thank you, is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director DeSalvo.
On the page where it lists the staff members that are on level 1, it has Virginia Weepert as principal of West High School for 2018-19 school year, and she's no longer principal there.
Correct, that will have to be corrected to say special education
Right,
specialist.
specialist, yes, thank you.
I think, excuse me. Trying to think how to do that properly. Probably the best way would be to just amend or recommend to amend the motion to include that change. And that way we can vote on the amendment and it'll be proper.
Mr. President,
Director DeSalvo.
I move that we amend the motion, the previous motion, to alter the document, to correct the document, to change the title for Virginia Weepert.
To, what was it again?
Special education specialist.
Okay,
To amend the document to say Virginia Weepert, special education specialist.
great, thank you. Is there a second to the amendment? Is there any discussion on the amendment? Okay, I'll call for the vote. Director, and this is just on the amendment to change the title of Virginia Weipert or Weepert. Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
Director Mayfield.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Beck.
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
My vote is yes, motion carries. So the motion has been amended and that title has been changed. Is there any additional discussion on the original motion? Director Beck.
Just a question, why is it that level 1 investigators are individuals listed, but the level 2 investigators are businesses with a person at them? Does anybody know?
I mean, generally, level 1 and level 2 denotes the seriousness of what is being investigated. So level 1 are generally things that are misdemeanors or things within the concerning policy in the district. When we get to level 2, usually it's we suspect that maybe a law has been broken. So that's when we'll go to hire a company.
Okay.
Or to, and these are companies that are licensed to do that.
Right, okay, thank you.
Any additional discussion? Okay, we'll call for the vote. Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
Director Mayfield.
Yes.
Director Beck.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
My vote is yes, motion carries, thank you. May I have a motion regarding appointment of medical director?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move the board approve the appointment of Dr. Naomi Shelley to serve as medical director for the 2018-19 school year for a fee of $6,300.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? I have a question. So we used to have a different medical director, I think. Is this the first year or is this a continuing year?
This is a continuing year. We did have someone, and I can't remember how many years ago.
Yeah, I can't recall. Third year? Man,
Thank you.
time flies. Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, we'll call for the vote. Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director Gosa?
Yes.
Director Mayfield?
Yes.
Director Beck?
Yes.
Director DeSalvo?
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
My vote is yes, motion carries, thank you. May I have a motion regarding appointment of a 504/ADA coordinator?
Mr. President,
I'm sorry, Director Beck.
I recommend that the board approve the appointment of TJ Schneckloff to serve as the section 504/ADA coordinator for the 2018-19 school year.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director Gosa.
I just had a quick question. Does Mr. Schneckloff get a stipend for doing this, or just gets incorporated in what he does already?
This is just part of his duties.
Nothing to add to the resume? Add it up?
Well, I don't know about padding it up, but it's an important responsibility, so, but yeah, that's part of his administrative duties.
Okay, so we're just making it official.
Yes, you need to do that annually.
Thank you.
Any additional discussion? Okay, call for the vote. Director Beck,
Yes.
Director Gosa,
Yes.
Director Hayes,
Yes.
Director Mayfield,
Yes.
Director DeSalvo,
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
My vote is yes, motion carries, thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of legal counsel?
Mr. President,
Director DeSalvo.
I move that the board approve the administration's recommendation to approve the district to continue to utilize the services of Lane and Waterman LLP as legal counsel to represent the district as necessary for the conduct of legal affairs of the Davenport Community School District.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director Beck.
I see that they've been our legal counsel for over 25 years according to the memo, and I think they're doing a fine job, but how often do we review and look into making changes to who our legal counsel is? Is that something that's done regularly or just when needed? Anybody know?
I think I'll try and take a stab at it. We have actually considered other legal counsel in the past, and there's a lot of reasons why we all used certain services, and especially professional services like that. And I will say that there has been in the past, there's been some consternation, and there has been some tension, but it was quite a while ago. So I think that if the board wanted to, it's something that a board member could ask for a review. There are certain things that we need to review anyway, but it's more like how cases are going and things like that. But it's certainly something, just as with everything, that if we want to consider it, the board certainly could.
Need to consider it. I was just curious about the process.
Yeah, there's no process exactly. It's just like these other things, like the medical director. So if we wanted to change that, we could, but it's kind of why. So, Director Hayes.
We were using that firm in Des Moines at times to assist us with some matters. Are we going to continue to use them as needed?
I think I better take that one too. I've been looking into the whole legal issue, and that's Ehlers and Coons, I think. Cooney. And then there's actually another legal firm that we use for certain, it's a very specific type of issue. And so this recognition is just, as it says here, as legal counsel to represent the district as necessary. But I have been talking with Lane and Waterman about those other services. And what I will do is we'll get the information and present it, we'll send it out. It won't be an official thing, but we'll get the information and let everybody know what all legal firms we have and what work they do. Any other discussion? Director Gosa.
I was just curious, since we've used them for 25 years, does their price kind of stay? Does it go up? I mean, because I would think like with the bidding process, I don't know how to say that the right way, but it would keep the prices down.
Well, it may and it may not. They do give us certain rates because, I don't know if it's so much because of the length of time that the district has been with them, but it is because we do this type of work with them. So it's, and they've, in fact, I compared this to Ehlers and Coons, or Kuhne, last year, and it was significantly different.
Okay. I think Lane and Waterman do a good job. I was just asking.
Yeah.
I don't want Wendy listening to this.
Too late.
Yeah, I'll just tell her about it. Don't worry about her listening to it. Any other discussion? I'll tell you, there's one thing, I'm sorry, Director DeSalvo. One of the things that I'm concerned with on the wording of the motion is that we, the board, approve the district continue to utilize the services of Lane and Waterman as legal counsel to represent the district. And one of the things that happens is that the Lane and Waterman actually represents the board and the district. There are two separate issues there. And I think for the purposes of the annual meeting, because Mary, this is the way we've probably worded it for 25 years also, I wouldn't want to mess with the wording unless we knew it was right. But I would take that on to make sure that we don't need to add the board, and if we do, we can put that onto a subsequent meeting. Director Beck.
I also just noticed that it says the 2018-18 school year on this memo, and it's the 2018-19 school year. So the motion may be correct, but the memo is not. I don't think that matters as much because it's the memo, but
No, I'm trying to, I don't see it.
it's behind you, the memo.
At the bottom, it's just a typo.
The very last line.
So I would ask that maybe
Yeah, I
when we
don't
file
think-
that away, we correct
Right.
it.
Yeah, I think the motion as it was made
Yeah.
does not have that time in there, so we'll just correct the memo. Okay, thank you. Mhm. Thanks for that correction. Any additional discussion? Okay, we'll call for the vote. Director DeSalvo?
Yes.
Director Gosa?
Yes.
Director Beck?
Yes.
Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
Director Mayfield?
Yes.
My vote is yes, motion carries, thank you. Next section is election of officers. May I have a nomination of a temporary chairperson?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I recommend the board nominate Mary Carruthers, board secretary, to serve as temporary chair for the election of officers.
Thank you, is there a second? Is there any discussion?
Who's Mary?
I'll call for the vote. Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Beck.
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
Director Mayfield.
Yes.
My vote is yes, motion carries. And our board secretary, Mary Carruthers, is the temporary chair. Mary?
Okay, I'm gonna explain the voting process and the rules for voting, because we're doing election of officers tonight. The process for the election of officers, if there's more than one nomination, the board automatically casts their votes for president and vice president by a signed written ballot. We will use the Roman system for this process if there are more than two people nominated. If there are three nominations for an office, there will be the first vote by written ballot, and the person with the highest number of votes will not be included in this second ballot. The second vote will be between those receiving the lower number of votes. The winner of the second ballot will then challenge the person with higher votes from the first ballot. If there are two or more people nominated, each person will be given a few minutes to share the reasons why they should be elected to office prior to taking the vote. Following their comments, the written vote will be held using the rules discussed. If there is only one nomination, are the remaining board members willing to cast their vote by roll call vote or by written ballot? I will call each of your names and you will answer either a roll call or written ballot. If there is no consensus, it automatically defaults to a written ballot. Director Johansson,
Roll call.
Director Gosa,
Roll call.
Director Beck,
Roll call.
Director DeSalvo,
Written.
Director Hayes,
Roll call.
Director Mayfield,
Roll call.
Director Potts.
Roll call.
Therefore, if we have only one nomination, we have consensus by roll call. Okay. First we'll do is the election of president. May I have a nomination for the office of president?
Madam President. Or
Direct-
Madam Secretary.
She's Madam President now.
Director Hayes. I would like to nominate Director Johansson as president.
Director Johansson, do you accept the nomination?
Yes.
Are there any other nominations for the office of president? Hearing no more nominations, the nominations are declared closed. Since there is only one person nominated, is it your wish the board elect Ralph Johansson as president? When I call your name, please answer yes or no. Director Johansson,
Yes.
Director Mayfield,
Yes.
Director Beck,
Yes.
Director Gosa,
Yes.
Director Potts,
Yes.
Director Hayes,
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
I therefore declare Ralph Johansson, President of the Davenport School Board for the 2018-19 school year. Congratulations. All right, we'll move on to Vice President. May I have a nomination for the office of Vice President?
Madam Secretary,
Director Beck,
I would like to nominate Linda Hayes for the office of Vice President.
Director Hayes, do you accept the nomination?
Yes.
Are there any other nominations for the office of Vice President? Hearing no more nominations, the nominations are declared closed. Since there is only one person nominated, is it your wish that Linda Hayes serve as Vice President of the Davenport School Board for the 2018-19 school year? When I call your name, please answer yes or no. Director Johansson,
Yes.
Director Mayfield,
Yes.
Director Beck,
Yes.
Director Gosa,
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
Director Hayes,
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
I therefore declare Linda Hayes as Vice President of the Davenport School Board for the 2018-19 school year. Congratulations. Now, I would like to read the oath of office for the president. So, Ralph, if you could please state your name. Please stand and raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Ralph Johansson,
I, Ralph Johansson,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to support the Constitution of the United States
to support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and that I am faithfully and impartially,
and that I
faithfully,
faithfully and impartially,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of the office of School Board President
of the office of School Board President
in the Davenport Community School District
in the Davenport Community School District
is now or hereafter required by law.
as now or hereafter required by law.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Director Hayes, could you please stand, raise your right hand, and repeat after me? I, Linda Hayes,
I, Linda Hayes,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to support the Constitution of the United
to
States
support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and that I faithfully and impartially,
and that I faithfully and impartially,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge the duties of the office of School Board Vice President
discharge the duties of the office of School Board Vice President
in the Davenport Community School
in
District
the Davenport Community School District
is now or hereafter required by law.
as now hereafter required by law.
Thank you very much. Congratulations to both of you, and I now turn the chair back over to President Jenkins.
Okay, thank you very much, Mary. We'll move on to board standing committees. So we have a lot of stuff going on right now, and we have some standing committees, some other activities that are going on, and we'll be working to define some of those a little bit more in the future. But for right now, I want to make sure that we're addressing the standing committees and that people that want to be on these committees have the opportunity to participate, to volunteer. And so I'm going to talk about each committee individually. First, the agenda committee is it's the president, the vice president, and the superintendent comprise the agenda committee. The board secretary is usually there to facilitate and take notes. It's rare that other board members have attended the agenda committee, although I will say that one time, a few years ago, there were a couple of board members that wanted to sit in on the agenda committee. And since we only had 3 board members, it wasn't an undue burden. But generally, it's just the president, vice president, and superintendent. If anybody wants to participate in any other way, why don't you let Mary know, all of these, let Mary know if you want to do something else. Policy committee is chaired by Director Beck right now. And Director Beck, you've probably been on that for nearly a year. I don't know. And would you want to continue to chair that committee?
Yes.
You would. And we have some members, other board members are on that. Director Gosa, are you on that?
Yes.
And you are? And I think I'm kind of a temporary person. I can't really attend because we get into a quorum issue, but I love policy. But if there are any other board members that want to participate on policy, let Mary know, because then we can make some decisions. Sometimes it's good to mix things up a little bit. Legislative Advocacy Committee, that is actually a standing committee. We made that a standing committee several years ago. And Director DeSalvo, you are chairing that committee. Do you want to continue doing that?
Yes.
Okay, so on legislative advocacy, what other board members do you have on that? Director Potts? And Director Gosa? Okay, so you've got a pretty good complement already.
Yes, we haven't had any meetings yet this year, but,
Okay.
I mean, this term.
Okay, but again, if anybody wants to participate, let Mary know, and then we can look at that, whether we need to do something there. And then Poverty Committee, again, is a committee that we made standing, was it just last year? Okay, so it's a standing committee of the board. It's very important, and Director Hayes has been chairing that. And would you like to continue?
Yes.
Okay. And are there other board members that are on that committee? Sounds like Director Gose is on a whole lot of committees. So, okay.
Lightning fast.
And two, you know, if you want to drop off of a committee, let Mary know about that too. But there would be room if anybody wants to participate on that committee as well. Since we're talking about committees and some of you need, like, any of the chairpersons, is there anything you want to say to get additional members or different members onto your committee? Director Hayes.
With the policy committee, normally we have meetings in the evening, but this is a lunchtime meeting from noon to 1:30. And it's a worthwhile discussion. A lot of community members attend and speak of various things that are available in the public that they were trying to assist us in doing, and kind of a partnership showing different things.
You meant poverty committee, right? Okay,
Yes, what
I
is
thought you
it?
said policy, so I was like,
Would come, or even if you're not sure, just come sit in. I think the next one is November 5th. You can sit in and see if it's something that you're interested in. Very meaningful discussion.
Anybody else? One thing I'd say to everybody out there, and I know there aren't a lot of you left, but this poverty committee is really something, and it is worthwhile, and it's really important to our community, and we need other input. There are a lot of things that the board tries to do and that our district is doing, and when the district and the city are working together and thinking about this, trying to understand poverty and to reduce the effects of poverty on education is really, really important. So I just want to encourage everybody to think about that. Legislative advocacy is something that our committee will hold various events throughout the year, and again, those are great events to come and participate in. Sometimes, in fact, there's one coming up soon where there will be legislators there, and you have a chance to meet directly with the legislators, tell them what you're thinking. Policy committee is really exciting. It is.
I know. And we keep on time too.
And all of these committees, the policy committee, legislative, and poverty are always open. It's very rare that we get anybody to our policy committee meeting, but we have had on occasion. So thank you all for the work that you're doing, and thank you for serving. Looks like that's about it. Are there any, okay, thank you. Are there any administrative reports?
None.
I have one board request. Board request is from Director Hayes. It's an agenda item. Request for a movie review, Waiting for Superman, and discussion to evaluate the differences and/or similarities with the Davenport Community School District. What can we do to assist our students? Why are you requesting this information or agenda item? For board development. No one has the extra time for book, so this 1 hour and 51 minutes documentary was selected. It's also available in a book if you prefer. Is there a second?
Second.
When would you like this information or agenda item? The October board meeting or the committee of the whole? Okay. So the request is that it be put on or around the October board meeting. Thank you very much for that. There are no additional board requests. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.